Caitlin Clark didn't just bring eyes to the WNBA. She brought leverage. With record-breaking fan engagement and lucrative endorsement deals, Clark represents a new breed of athlete that doesn't need to rely solely on league salaries. Alongside Angel Reese, she's redefining what it means to be a professional player in women's basketball. This shift in power, where individual branding competes with institutional control, is at the center of the WNBA's most critical labor standoff in years.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
As the league scrambles to preserve its momentum, the players are making it clear. Visibility equals value, and it's time the contract reflected that. AR speaks. Folder not found. Create new folder. Angel Reese speaks. The 30-day extension reached just before the October 31st deadline isn't just a delay. It's a high-stakes standoff. Both sides now face a November 30th decision point that could either stabilize or fracture the league's growth. The conversation is no longer just about salaries. It's about equity, revenue sharing, and the right of players to shape the league's future. With stars wielding unprecedented influence and the league confronting its outdated business model, this moment could redefine professional sports economics across the board. The WNBA just avoided a lockout by the skin of its teeth, but not without serious consequences. Cathy Engelbert, the face of league leadership for the past few years, is officially stepping down as commissioner. Yeah, gone. Out! While fans and players were glued to their phones waiting to see if the league would shut down entirely, a different headline just dropped like a bomb. Engelbert's resignation is now official. So let's set the scene. It's October 31st, and tension is thick. The collective bargaining agreement between the WNBA and its players' union is about to expire. Everyone knows what that means. If a new deal is in place, the league could be facing a lockout. Salaries? Frozen. Training camps? Halted. Momentum? Wasted. And just when it looks like everything might unravel, both sides agree to a 30-day extension. Crisis averted for now. But in the middle of this high-stakes game of contractual chicken, Engelbert walks away. And this isn't just a case of bad timing. Her resignation drops right when the league is at its most fragile, financially, publicly, and internally, while the WNBA is experiencing a boom in visibility and media attention. Thanks in part to breakout stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, the business side of the league is under massive pressure. And guess what? Those very players aren't just athletes anymore. They're brands, power players, and marketing gold. Caitlin Clark is rewriting the book on how women sports stars can command a following. Angel Reese is doing business deals like it's second nature. And behind all of that is a growing reality. WNBA athletes have more leverage than ever before. They're not waiting around to the league to figure it out. They're setting their own terms and demanding that the league rise to meet them. That's what made these negotiations so intense. It's not just about a bigger paycheck. It's about control. Players want fairer contracts, real revenue sharing, and a seat at the table. The old model? Not cutting it anymore. So here's where things start to get messy. The WNBA has built up major buzz recently. Ratings are up. Sponsorships are rolling in. There's actual cultural momentum. But that doesn't mean the money is flowing evenly or fairly. The players see it, and they're speaking up. And with Engelbert stepping down, the league is left without its top executive during one of its most crucial bargaining windows. CC speaks. The 30-day extension to avoid the lockout might sound like a temporary win, but really it's a high-stakes pause button. It gives both sides more time to sort through the core issues, things like pay structure, player rights, and long-term sustainability. But it also exposes just how much work is still left undone. And while the front offices are scrambling to figure out their next move, the players are not backing down. This new generation of WNBA stars is built different. They're not just selling jerseys. They're trademarking names, launching brands, and running their own media ecosystems. That independence is reshaping the entire business model of the league. When top-tier talent can make more from brand deals and league salaries, you better believe they're coming to the table with demands. And not just suggestions, demands. The math has changed. So now, with the November 30th deadline looming, The league is racing to avoid a total collapse in confidence. Fans are watching. Sponsors are watching. And the players? They're ready to walk if things don't change. This isn't just about the Caitlins and the Angels of the league, either. Sure, the top names have undeniable market power, but there's a broader conversation happening around equity. How do you ensure that all players, not just the stars, get a fair shake? That's one of the toughest parts of these negotiations. The union has to balance the rising leverage of its marquee names with the need for unity across the board. Because let's be real, divide the locker room and the league collapses. That's why this extension feels less like relief and more like a countdown clock. It's not just a wait-and-see moment. It's a test of leadership. And with Engelbert stepping aside, the spotlight is even hotter. Who's steering this ship now? Who's going to step in and actually fix the structural problems that got them here in the first place? CC speaks. The answer better come fast, because the next few weeks could make or break the league's future. If they strike a deal that prioritizes fairness, growth, and sustainability, it could be a new era for the WNBA. But if negotiations fail, or if they rush into a half-baked compromise, this whole thing could go off the rails. No pressure, right? Here's the big-picture problem. The WNBA can't afford to lose its momentum. Not now. Not when the product on the court is stronger than ever. Not when fans are actually tuning in. A lockout would be a disaster. Not just a PR nightmare, but a financial gut punch. Training derailed. Player development stalled. And worst of all, fan trust evaporates. You get one shot at a breakout moment. And this is it. So what now? Well, both sides are talking. That's the good news. They've got until November 30th to hammer out a deal. But behind closed doors, this is about way more than contracts. It's about legitimacy. It's about recognizing that players aren't just lucky to be here. They are the league. If that message doesn't sink in with whoever takes over after Engelbert, there's no guarantee this extension means anything at all. What we're seeing right now is a full-on shift in power. Athletes aren't just participants anymore. They're partners, entrepreneurs, catalysts for growth. And they're not interested in being left behind while the league cashes in on their influence. The smart move? Treat them like the business forces they are. Caitlin Clark is pulling in more eyeballs than most male athletes. Angel Reese has a brand so strong, she doesn't need the league to stay relevant. These aren't anomalies. They're the blueprint. And if the WNBA doesn't adjust, that blueprint walks. So as we wait for November 30th, here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't just about avoiding a lockout. It's about proving the league can evolve, that it can support its stars, protect its rank and file, and actually build a sustainable future. Because if it can't, no amount of media buzz or trending highlights is going to save it. This moment is the test. That's a shakeup, but it might also be a chance to bring in leadership that understands a new era, that isn't afraid of player power, that's ready to build with the athletes instead of around them. But the clock is ticking. Let's be honest. Fans have waited long enough. The athletes have waited long enough. This isn't about keeping the lights on anymore. It's about building something that actually lasts. So what do you think? Will the WNBA rise to the occasion or fumble the moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're rooting for the players to get what they deserve. And don't forget to subscribe for more updates, because with November 30th right around the corner, this story is far from over. Here's the thing. This isn't just a league drama anymore. It's a crossroads moment in sports. The kind of moment that separates nice try from game changer. Clipboard in hand, trying to decide which future wants. Let's not sugarcoat this. Cathy Engelbert's resignation is a massive deal. This isn't some quiet shuffle behind the scenes. This is a commissioner, the public face of the league, stepping down while the league is mid-crisis. Say what you want about Engelbert's time in office. Some people saw her as a stabilizing force. Others thought she moved too cautiously. But either way, walking away in the middle of the labor standoff is not a neutral move. This isn't business as usual. It's a blinking red alert. And what's wild is that this could have been the WNBA's cleanest success story yet. The league has never had this kind of attention. The fans are here. The talent is undeniable. The players are marketable, magnetic, and in control of their narratives. Caitlin Clark is drawing NBA-level viewership. Angel Reese is a walking media empire. Sabrina Ionescu is becoming a household name. And instead of capitalizing on that with smart, long-term deals and serious investment, we're dealing with a possible shutdown and a leadership vacuum. You couldn't script it worse. This isn't a niche league begging for scraps anymore. The WNBA has become part of the mainstream sports conversation. And that means the expectations are higher. The stakes are real. And every misstep gets amplified under the spotlight. That's what makes this resignation so charged. Because it's not happening in isolation. It's happening right as players are redefining the power dynamic. Look at what's really going on beneath the surface. The top athletes have diversified income streams now. They've got endorsement deals, personal branding, merch, podcasts, trademark catchphrases, you name it. Their financial independence gives them leverage. And not just in some vague theoretical way, real contractual leverage. They're not afraid to walk, because the league needs them more than they need the league. CC speaks. That flips everything on its head. The old model, where players quietly played ball and took whatever salary was handed to them, is dead. This new era is about ownership, not just of the ball, but of the business, the narrative, the future. And that's what this whole labor standoff is really about. Not just numbers on a check. It's about respect, control, equity. You can't keep operating like it's 2005 when your stars are trending globally on a Tuesday morning. The league knows this. That's why the 30-day extension happened. They didn't suddenly grow a heart and decide to play nice. It's strategy. They knew a lockout would destroy everything they've been building. Sponsors would panic. Fans would check out. The momentum would be gone. So they bought themselves time. But here's the catch. Time only helps if you use it. If this month turns into a game of PR-safe stalling and weak offers, then they're back at square one, with the added mess of no commissioner and a player base more pissed off than before. What's happening right now is a kind of collective awakening within the league. Players are seeing the numbers. They're looking at media deals, social media engagement, merch sales, and they're asking the most basic, unavoidable question. Where's our cut? And they're not wrong to ask it. The league's revenue is growing. Attention is growing. The product is better than it's ever been. But if that success isn't showing up in the players' bank accounts, then something's broken. Especially when people drawing that attention, the stars filling seats and selling out arenas, are still locked into contracts that barely scratch the surface of what they're worth. The extension gives both sides until November 30th to fix it. But let's not pretend it's some generous gift of time. It's a fuse, and it's already burning. Now, for the players, this is also a tricky balancing act. The top-tier names like Clark and Reese have all the leverage in the world. They've got big brand deals and media deals to fall back on. But the majority of WNBA players aren't operating at that level yet. They rely heavily on league income. That's where the real tension sits. How do you create a deal that lifts everyone, without tipping the scales too far in favor of only the stars? That's the challenge facing the union right now. And it's not a small one. Unity sounds great in theory, but when half your roster can survive a shutdown and the other half can't pay rent, solidarity becomes a harder sell. Still, the pressure is forcing the conversation, and it's exposing how outdated the league's financial model really is. For years, the WNBA has operated on scarcity thinking. Keep costs low, manage expectations, grow slowly. But that playbook doesn't work anymore. The audience isn't small. The potential isn't theoretical. The stars are the show. And this isn't just about player benefits. It's about survival. If the league doesn't start treating its athletes like business partners, it will keep bleeding talent to overseas leagues or burnout. And that's not just a missed opportunity. That's a structural failure. So yeah, the pressure's on. And with Engelbert gone, there's now a leadership vacuum at exactly the wrong moment. Whoever steps into that role is going to have to deal with all of this immediately. No onboarding period, no grace window. The next commissioner needs to know how to speak player, how to handle media, how to work fast, and most importantly, how to stop thinking like it's a minor league. Because here's the truth. This isn't about just keeping the league alive. It's about proving it deserves to thrive. And fans aren't just watching. They're paying attention. People are invested. They're showing up, buying merch, following careers, tuning into draft nights. You think they're going to stick around for another decade of underpaid stars and management drama? No chance. If the league doesn't get this right, if November 30th passes without a real agreement that reflects the new reality, the consequences will be brutal. Not just financially, but culturally. Because what message does that send? That even with rising stars, record views, and media buzz, women still can't get paid what they're worth? Still can't get leadership that listens? Still can't build a league that works for them? That's not just bad business. That's a PR catastrophe. So here we are, less than a month ago, no commissioner, and a player base that's more empowered, more visible, and more influential than ever before. It's crunch time. And for the league's decision-makers, this is the moment to prove they're not just coasting on a wave. They're building a foundation. One that doesn't crumble the second a player asks for more than a discount deal. Because this isn't charity. This is business. And if the business doesn't evolve, the players will take theirs elsewhere. No bluff. No drama. Just facts. And honestly, can you blame them? So where does the WNBA go from here? Because make no mistake, this isn't just about contract negotiations anymore. It's a referendum on the league's future. A stress test on whether the WNBA is ready to leave the slow growth, underfunded era behind, or whether it's still trapped in the same outdated loop of playing catch-up. And honestly, there's no more room for delay. With Cathy Engelbert officially out, the leadership vacuum is real, and the timing could not be worse. You don't lose your commissioner in the middle of the labor standoff unless something behind the scenes is seriously off. Whether she jumped or was pushed, that's another conversation. But her exit, timed so close to a possible lockout, says more than any press release ever could. This wasn't a smooth baton pass. It was a retreat mid-sprint. CC speaks. Now, let's talk about how delicate this moment really is. For all the progress the WNBA has made, the record-breaking draft numbers, the sponsorships, the surge in media coverage, it still exists in a kind of precarious tension, one that hinges on whether or not the people in charge truly get it. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If the decision-makers keep seeing the players as replaceable assets instead of central partners, they're going to lose the very thing that's making the league relevant. Think about it. Caitlin Clark isn't just a generational talent. She's a media phenomenon. Angel Reese isn't just a forward. She's a cultural force. These women aren't just hoopers anymore. They're brands, voices, movements. And not because the league marketed them that way, but because they did it themselves. They've built massive followings. They've secured high-value endorsement deals. They've created platforms independent of the WNBA. And that's exactly why they now have the leverage to demand more, and why they absolutely should. They're not sidekicks of the league's growth. They are the growth. Which begs the question, if the players are doing the heavy lifting, why is the league still operating like it's doing them a favor by existing? That's the energy fans are starting to pick up on. That disconnect between how much value the players bring and how little power they seem to hold in shaping the business side. And with each extension, delay, or vague promise, the tension grows. The 30-day extension may have delayed the lockout, but it didn't solve anything. It's like pressing snooze on a blaring alarm. You get a few more minutes apiece, but the wake-up call is still coming. And November 30th? That's the moment the alarm goes off for real. If the league wants to be taken seriously, the next deal has to reflect this era, not the version of the league from 10 years ago. That means real revenue sharing. That means base salaries that make it viable to play in the WNBA full-time, without players having to hop on international flights to stay financially afloat. That means building a system that supports everyone, not just the top 1% of the roster. Because if the top-tier athletes are thriving off endorsements while the rest of the league still struggles to make ends meet, you've got an internal problem waiting to explode. And union leadership knows it. Balancing the demands of stars like Clark and Reese with the broader needs of the entire player base is a near impossible task. But it's not optional. If you fracture the locker room, you lose everything. Solidarity is what makes collective bargaining work. And solidarity requires that the gains be collective, not just shiny wins or the headline names. That's why this deal matters so much. It's not just a contract, it's a blueprint for how the league treats its labor force, for whether athletes feel like partners or pawns, for whether the league can finally outgrow its own limitations and embrace a model that rewards performance and personality alike. And here's the kicker. Fans aren't going to sit back quietly if this falls apart, because fans today are informed. They know the numbers. They follow the business side. They're tweeting during the Board of Governors meetings. They understand player value, contract breakdowns, and labor rights. The days of sweeping things under the rug and hoping no one notices? Long gone. If the WNBA fails to meet this moment, it's not just a missed opportunity. It's a breach of trust. And that's not something the league can afford right now. Because if you lose player trust and fan trust in the same breath, you're done. No amount of slick promos or branded content can fix that. The league has to come to the table with real solutions, ones that reflect the new power dynamics, the new expectations, and the new realities of athlete-driven business. This isn't about saving face. It's about saving future. And it's not like there's a shortage of options. There are concrete ways the WNBA could show it's serious. Guarantee higher minimum salaries. Offer profit-sharing tied to media deals. Expand investment in player marketing. Create transparency around revenue streams. Modernize the CBA with mechanisms that allow for player mobility, long-term career planning, and personal brand development. None of that is radical. That's just good business in 2025. What's radical is thinking you can run a league built on modern stars with management mindset stuck in the early 2000s. So here's where we're at. One of the most consequential labor negotiations in league history. A commissioner's seat left empty, a fan base that's tired of excuses, and a group of athletes who are finally firmly in control of their own narrative. The WNBA can either meet this moment or watch it walk away. Because players like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, they'll be just fine. They have the platforms. They have the sponsors. They have the power. If the WNBA wants to remain their league, it's going to have to earn that privilege. And fans, they're not here for performative equality and vague mission statements. They want results. They want progress. They want the stars of this league treated with the same financial and professional respect as their counterparts in other major sports leagues. So let's see if the WNBA delivers. Because the countdown's on. The extension expires November 30th. The clock is ticking. The pressure is mounting, and the spotlight has never been hotter. You're not going to want to miss what happens next. If you're rooting for the players, if you want to see the WNBA finally live up to its full potential, hit that like button. Tell us in the comments, what does the league need to do right now to get this deal done? And subscribe if you want to stay on top of every twist, every breakdown, and every headline in this unfolding saga. Because this isn't just a turning point for the WNBA. This is a test. And the world is watching.